All right, welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is John,
And I'm Jack.
and this week we are reviewing the movie The Longest Days, starring John Wayne and every other actor from the 1960s.
No kidding.
And this week we are graced by the presence of one of our guests who's been with us before. Blake from the WWII Airborne Demonstration Team has agreed to come back and review another movie with us. Blake, welcome. And if you'd like to tell the people a little bit about yourself, go ahead.
Hey guys, great to be back. I appreciate y'all having me again. I'm a member of the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team, so we're based in Frederick, Oklahoma, and we actually jumped from World War II era C-47s. We have a C-47 named Boogie Baby and a C-49. She was a DC-3 but turned into a C-49 when she entered service. Her name is Wildcat, and we actually use both of them. We jump from them. Original World War II era gear. We try to remember, honor, and serve our veterans, both World War II and all other conflicts. So we we're all about airborne and all about parachuting. So it's fun to get to talk about another airborne movie, partial airborne movie. A couple scenes in there.
It's still a pretty airborne heavy movie, I think. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
we definitely get multiple facets in this one. So was this movie for you? Did it really get your blood pumping? Because did you say you have another jump school coming up soon?
We do early October. I think the 6th or the 7th is when I'm heading out there again for 10 days. And that's our October jump school. So we hold two jump schools and a team meeting a year. So our team, we call it our April safety stand down, and team meeting is in April. And then we have a July jump school and an October jump school. And those are open to the public to sign up for, to come learn how to parachute, get 5 jumps out of a C-47. And so, yeah, that one's coming up in October here. Gets my blood pumping. I'm ready to jump, man. I'm excited for it.
So does something that I think was a little heavier in this movie was the presence of gliders, kind of like when we reviewed A Bridge Too Far last time. You guys have any plans of adding a glider to the fleet at some point, or is that a little too risky?
I have mentioned it to a couple people saying how cool it would be to have a glider. I have no clue how the FAA works with something like that. But man, I've thrown the idea out there. Just don't know if it'll ever come to fruition.
Oh, what does the FAA care? They let people build airplanes in their garages. Like,
I, it's one of those things. Nothing's impossible.
that's fair. Well, thanks for coming and joining us again.
You bet.
Jack, let's start off with you. What'd you think of this movie?
I liked it. The
Care to
the scene
elaborate?
I wanted to bring up first was the Nazi Ober Lieutenant. I forget his name, but he was like, "Nah, the Allies aren't going to attack. If they were going to attack, they were going to attack in May. Now, if you excuse me, I need to go buy my wife some shoes, as it is her birthday on this day, June 6th."
I think that was supposed to be Rommel that said that line. Or
Rommel?
Yeah, it was.
uh, but yeah, that's the amount of exposition in this film is just off the charts. Like I feel like that's the sole purpose of John Wayne's character in this movie is he doesn't really like progress the story along in any manner. He's just there to like give you speeches to like bring you up to speed on what's going on.
Right.
Like the scene when they're in the hangar and they're all playing with the little cricket toy things, and he's like, "This is so you don't shoot each other, gentlemen." And it's like, is there anything else to this chat, or is that it? Like,
Well, yeah, we
So
needed to establish that.
one thing about those crickets, it always gets me when I see these movies. And with anything I'm about to say, I am not a historian by trade. There may be something wrong in what I say, but to my understanding, I'll give it that to begin with. to my understanding, I don't think the 82nd Airborne even had those crickets. I think it was mainly a 101st thing, and I could be wrong about that, but I do know that it was not the typical one click followed by two clicks you hear everybody say. It was one click followed by one click, then two clicks followed by two clicks, and so on and so forth until the two guys or however many found each other. That's such a common misconception they put in these movies. And so everybody repeats it. And every time I'm just kind of like, oh, that again.
Well, I mean, the movie does allude to that just a teeny bit because there's a scene where they do the cricket and they don't get a response and they're like, oh, maybe they're British and they don't have them. So I mean, there was
Right.
that like one moment, which also is a hilarious scene where you have, you know, the file of American paratroopers walking past a file of German troops along a fence, and they're just both too busy looking up at the sky to notice that their enemy is right there.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
or
The,
continue.
sorry, man,
That's all
the
good.
lack of moonlight that night, I bet to my knowledge, it was not real bright out. So probably couldn't even see each other. Just Germans assumed they were Germans and Americans assumed they were another platoon of Americans.
Right.
Yeah, and them walking right by each other. Hey, those guys were Germans.
And I love how his teammates just kept walking because like he turns around, he's like, I think those are Germans, and he looks behind him, and like everybody he was with had already left. And he's like, guys, come on.
I didn't I didn't like it didn't occur to me that this movie was using the Hollywood darkness. I thought they were just that
Right.
stupid.
Right. Right. Yeah, definitely the Hollywood darkness. Full moon illumination flare sort of darkness. That reminds me of that scene from Band of Brothers where Dick Winters is with that I don't remember random PFC, and the PFC's like, we're lost, aren't we? And he's like, no, Private, we're in Normandy.
Well, at least we have that going for us.
Yeah, at least we got that
Yeah,
going.
so far so good.
So was there anything, Blake, that like when you watch, like I'm guessing you've probably seen this movie before, but
Hmm.
when you watch this movie, was there anything that you got that was like new to you? Because I definitely learned something. I had to like look something up, like the French actually having members in the SAS and having like French paratroopers jump in to Normandy
Right.
was like a new thing for me to learn. Like I know it was a multi-nation effort, but the the individual stories that they chose for this I thought was kind of interesting. So I was just curious if there's anything new for you.
Right. So the part of the movie that I really like to see is showing how many nations were involved in the invasion. Seeing the Scots come on shore, seeing the French, the British. A lot of the times the focus is on the U.S. and our involvement on Omaha and Utah beaches, and that sort of thing. So it was nice to kind of see it touched on in various nations that were involved. As far as I can't speak to the other nations because that's not really my speciality. American Airborne is more what I try to study. And this movie, there were so many moments where I was like, okay, did that really happen? I need to go look that up. Did this really happen? Yeah, I need to go research that. And come to find out, there's just so much stuff that was just kind of thrown in there for action movie sake that didn't actually happen. Like there was one scene on Omaha Beach where they're dragging these inflatable boats up on shore, and it's Omaha Beach. They came on shore and these landing craft, and I'm just like, wait a second, is that some kind of like bundle of supplies? And I was like, no, it's an inflatable raft they're carrying on shore. That makes no sense. It's Normandy. There's no more bodies of water further inland that they're going to need to traverse. Like that didn't happen. I mean, to my knowledge, again, I could be wrong, but I felt like that one
Unprepared.
little moment was like,
Imagine
Yeah.
being everybody else gets to go on Higgins' boat except for like you and your squad. It's like fuck
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you
Thrown
made
out
fun
into
of
the
the
English
boat. You
Channel
don't get a
with a little,
ride.
yeah,
That's
thrown
what
out
you
into the
get
English
for
Channel
drinking
with
the
a little
last of the
inflatable.
coffee and not replacing it.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know, some other stuff as far as the movie goes. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that kind of created some questions, and it helped me to want to go look some things up. But whomever was in the wardrobe and props department gets a scathing review from me. Um, Almost nothing about the uniforms or the equipment for both the American infantry and the paratroopers was correct. It was like, okay, I've got to not be a Stitch Nazi here and like overanalyze everything. Just enjoy the movie because I was like about to blow a blood vessel over a couple different things.
I think one of the things gear wise that stuck out to me was like it seemed as though every single paratrooper had a Thompson submachine gun.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
I was I was like, I get it. They're cooler, like more actiony, if you will, but it's the
Those are
primary.
expensive.
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
curious if maybe they just bought like a half dozen Thompsons and just like every time they filmed the scene, they're just like, here you go. Like,
My big thing was every guy that had a Thompson also had a M1923 cartridge belt, and I'm like, that doesn't fit Thompson mags, and
yeah,
they're all empty too, so there's no ammo in them.
I did notice that too. Like you have a rifle belt for your Thompson.
Right, right, right. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. Kind of touching on the real history of, of paratrooper operations during the invasion. I don't think anybody who jumped, who was in immediate combat, had Thompsons. I believe that they were up at higher levels, like battalion level, sort of a thing, or maybe that was 1911s. I'm not sure, but everybody thinks that every paratrooper had a Thompson and a 1911. And that was maybe the odd case, one guy, but your average run of the line infantryman, all the way up to NCO and officer level, carried M1 carbine or M1 Grand, 99% M1 Grand.
Huh. I don't
But they're
mean to
not
be
as
the
cool.
gun Nazi.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. I see. This movie, as much as I like it, it brings out my gun Nazi and my Stitch Nazi in me. I'm usually like, I'm usually like the fence sitter when it comes to things like that, where I'm like, that's all right. I guess that's cool that you want to have a shoulder holster when nobody had those in Normandy, but okay, do your thing. And then there are the occasional moments where I would like dive headfirst off the fence sitting straight into the Stitch Nazi position.
I think my biggest like pedant moment in this movie was the scene where one of the paratroopers is like crouching in the dark and he pulls out his clicker and he clicks it and he hears the 2 click response and he's like he lets out a sigh of relief and he stands up and he gets shot twice.
Yeah.
There's 2 gunshots and he falls over and he's like, but I heard the clicks, and then he just like
Yeah.
just like yeah. And then you see a German soldier walk up. Sorry. And you see him rack the bolt on his Car 98, and it
Mm.
replicates the click clack. And I'm like, one, the car doesn't do that. And two,
Yeah.
the car is a bolt action. Why did it shoot twice? Like,
Right. 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 Yeah. That was one of those Hollywood moments where I was just my face was in my palm for a minute or two.
See, I I didn't catch the car. It was the rifle making that noise. I thought he was just a really smart soldier who somehow figured out in the course of a couple minutes that that was the signal, got his hands on one of those clickers, and then used it to kill soldiers.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it. A lot of people think that those clickers were a children's toy. Like people say it all the time. It was a children's toy. They gave them at last minute. It was actually a musical device, like a meant for keeping time. trying to keep the
like a metronome deal.
yeah, a metronome type deal. That's what it was meant for. And so somebody got the wise idea of using it as a signal device. And so it was the 101st Airborne Division. They ordered a ton of them. Most of them were silver plated or that nickel plated, not the gold color you see, everywhere, but kind of nickel plated color. And so that's how that came to be. They weren't a children's toy. They were a musical device.
Well, if any of our fans at home are interested, you can get a clicker from Amazon for about $12. So,
Yep.
Damn inflation. I remember when they used to cost 5 cents.
go back to bed, Grandpa.
Apparently, you can just use a Car 98. Why even go to Amazon?
Yeah. That was one of the most produced rifles to a time.
Mm-hmm.
It blows my mind. Granted, this is a little bit of a deviation from the movie, but like I enjoy myself firearms, and like I have a good number of them, and I tend to lean towards the older guns. Like I like guns with historical value to them. And
Absolutely.
one gun I've always wanted was a Car 98. And 10, 15 years ago, you could get a Car 98 for like 100 or $200 because it was one of the most widely mass produced rifles ever. Like I have a Russian Mosin Nagant, which is what the Soviet Union used during World War II, and I bought that for like $80. And all of these like old like beat to hell rifles from World War II that there are literally tens, if not hundreds of millions of, they're like $600, $700, $800 now. And I'm like, this is such bullshit. I was like,
Yep. I
but
remember probably going ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, I was going to say, I'm like, on the plus side though, if I ever decide to sell my Mosin, I can at least turn a profit on it. But
Man, I had the idea probably, I don't know, 10 years ago or more now, 15 years ago. I mean, I was a young dude and like telling my mom, I was like, look, if you get a crate of these Mosin Nagants, that you can buy them by the crate. They're like $1,200 for a crate. They literally had a crate of them sitting in my local hardware store. You could go in, pick one out of the crate, still in Cosmoline for $80.
Yeah, there was a time where there wasn't a sports shop in America that didn't have a dozen of them on the rack.
Right. I told her, I was like, you could get a crate of these, and in like 10 years, you'll be able to make 10 times the amount. And we should have gotten that because we would have turned a profit for sure. They're $600-$700 now. I mean, they're 540 something for a Mosin last time I looked. Insane.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like I said, when I got mine, it was $80. So,
right.
But the last time I looked for a car, I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole because I was like, okay, maybe I can get one cheaper if I don't get like a German produced one. Like maybe if I get a Czech or a Swiss car, I can get one on the cheap. And once you start going down the car rabbit hole, you'll find that there's actually like a really big collector community of them, like the hardcore people that are like, I want one from each nation. Like there were Car 98s in service up until the time Saddam was in power. Like,
wow.
Like no joke, there are Car 98s out there stamped with Saddam's Iraqi army symbol on it.
Wow.
Those ones are a little more sought after, but I was like, it just doesn't matter. Everybody wants them.
Right.
But Jack, what was your what was your favorite scene in this?
Had to have been the landing scene with all the paratroopers and just seeing all the zany situations they ended up in, like that guy that crashed through the chicken coop and was trying to quiet them so he didn't give away his position.
Yeah.
That poor bastard that got the 1 in a million and ended up in a fucking well.
See, I need to know if that's actually true or not. Because if it's not, that's going to be another facepalm moment. If it is, then I'm amazed I haven't heard of it yet.
I mean, it had there had to have been at least one.
Yeah. Well, the one paratrooper who landed and got his chute snagged on a church and was stuck up
Yep.
there for like 8 or 10 hours with
Then he was deafened.
with the ringing bells. Like that was a real event that actually happened. If I'm not mistaken, though, he didn't link up with his own troops. He got captured by the Germans after the fact. But if you go over to Normandy today, they actually have a effigy of him in that same on that same church. Like they got like a crash test dummy and dressed it up as a paratrooper and have it hanging from the side of the church now to
Right.
commemorate that event.
Yep. They sure do.
If I was
Yeah,
that guy, I
you're
don't think
spot
I'd
on.
want. If I was that guy, I don't think I'd want that moment of my life replicated.
Yeah, genuinely. I mean, what worse of a spot can you be in than on high in front of a bunch of armed Germans that are there to kill you? But yeah,
And
he survived that. Yeah, that's the amazing part. To my knowledge, he basically played dead and had those bells ringing in his ears throughout the whole night. Couldn't hear a damn thing the next day. That was one part of the movie did get fairly correct. So that was interesting.
And then there was that one guy, I think my favorite one, who landed just in front of German high command and was immediately captured the second he touched the ground.
Right.
And they're like, "Who are you with?" He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just got lost during training."
Right. Good old British humor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope he made it out of the war.
Hopefully so.
Blake, what about you? What was your favorite scene in this movie?
I gotta say, it was not a movie until Sean Connery showed up and they started playing bagpipes.
You again.
Yeah, when the bagpipes started playing, that's when I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. I don't know. It had a lot of good scenes that I really enjoyed. I liked kind of the real wide angle, like sliding camera scenes where they're rushing the beachhead on Omaha, and that scene again with Sean Connery, of course, just because. And yeah, those two for me are really my favorite ones. Again, I'm trying to find the good. I enjoy the movie overall, but it was like, okay, that moment bugs me. This moment's cool. That moment bugs me. This moment's cool.
There's a lot of problems in this movie.
Yeah.
My favorite scene was the entire sequence of when they were taking Pegasus Bridge.
Right.
I thought it was really cool that they filmed that actually on site with the exact same bridge. Like they filmed that scene in France where that actually occurred.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. The thing that killed me with that scene was when you see the glider landing, as soon as it like hits the ground and you see it like crashing through barbed wire, you see that scene and then it cuts to like a German like looking over like, huh? And then you see that like it just started that like scene again of the glider crashing just again. Like they just filmed like 5 seconds of this glider rolling along the ground and they used it like 3 or 4 times, just starting it from the beginning again. I'm like, guys, can we just change it up? You had to have filmed the scene with more than one camera. Choose a different angle. Like,
right.
But
Yeah.
That the whole Pegasus Bridge thing is it's actually one of my favorite stories or events from D-Day. So it's really cool to see it in this movie. I honestly wish that that particular part of D-Day had its own film, but
Absolutely.
I don't make those decisions.
Be a lot cooler if you did.
I'm still firm in the belief that they need to make a movie about Jake McNasty McNeese. And if anybody doesn't know who he is, look him up. That's an incredible
winner
story.
Of the best nickname award.
Yep. Filthy 13, Jake McNeese. We actually, so fun fact, his picture and his signature is inside of our C-47 Boogie Baby. So when I'm jumping, he's one of the pictures that I look over at. I'll be standing up in the stick, getting ready to jump. And you're nervous, of course, when you're jumping. So those nerves are always going to be there. And I look over at the pictures of these guys. We have, dozens of signatures and pictures of these veterans that have come to visit the plane, and especially seeing Jake McNeese's picture and his signature is one of those motivational things to see that gets you ready to go out of that plane. But yeah, man, a movie about him, that's one I would pay for big time.
I will say I never understood the importance of the monkey bars at the childhood playground until I saw this movie.
Yeah.
Because with Pegasus Bridge, you had like 2 or 3 of the glider troops just like monkey swinging across the bottom of the bridge, like, "We'll get the explosives off for you, Captain."
Yeah. I remember looking at that and thinking, no, I couldn't do that.
No. The other really cool part of it is so the commander of that operation, Major Howard, um, I forgot what the name of the actor was who played him, but the actor who played John Howard in this film was actually an enlisted soldier who participated in the taking of Pegasus Bridge during World War II.
Really?
Yeah, so that's what he did during World War II, and then he got into acting after the war. And then when this movie came up, the producers, they actually offered him the ability to just play himself in this movie. And he's like, "I'm a higher class actor than to play myself, because it would just be like a background character type deal." And he's like, "I want to play Major Howard." And so they're like, "Okay, whatever." Like,
Right.
but that was one of the cool, like, to think, because there wasn't a lot of guys that participated in that particular operation, because it was like a grand total of 3 gliders that did it.
Right.
So I think that was like 60 or 80 guys.
Right. That's incredible. They included him like that, and that he was around to do it and to that level. That's something I didn't know about it. Very cool.
But is this the part of the show where we're going to talk about every single stupid thing that bugged us now? I know we've already done
Now's the time to air grievances.
I will start.
All right.
The green screen. Anybody notice the green screen at the beginning of the movie with Rommel?
How could I not?
Like,
God,
I will give them credit. It is a 1960s film. Is probably like very beginning of green screen technology, but did nobody notice in the editing process when Rommel's in the middle of his speech and he just disappears from the screen for like 30 seconds, and he just pops back up?
I had to double take when that happened.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what just happened?
And no one bothered to fix it.
Yep. I thought I lost a contact or something, and my eyes are messing with me. Nope, green screen.
Jack, what was your biggest grievance in this film?
Had to have been that. Yeah, the very obvious green screen and that whole mistake where they just didn't fix it. Must have been tired that day and didn't want to edit.
I think another thing that really bugged me, and this is where it gets to be pedantic too, is the scene with the Luftwaffe pilots. You can see in the background the airplanes that are on their airfield, and they are German airplanes. So to their credit, there is that, but they were trainers. Like, they were just they just grabbed random airplanes and threw some German paint on them, and they're like, "Look, fighter planes." And it's like, no, it's not.
Right.
And like, I appreciated what they were trying to show with there only being the 2 pilots, like, because at this point in the war, the Luftwaffe was very heavily decimated and had very limited resources. But I mean, they were still like a formidable force throughout the entire war. It's just up into the point of D-Day. A lot of people might know this, but Jimmy Doolittle, the guy that led the raid on Japan at the beginning of the war, actually became involved in the 8th Air Force after he got back to the United States, and then went over to England for the daylight bombing campaigns. And he completely changed the doctrine of the fighter pilots over there, because before he got there, the doctrine of the fighter pilots was do anything to keep the bombers alive. And then when Jimmy Doolittle got over there, he switched it to your only objective is to destroy German airplanes. It's like, whatever happens to the bombers happen. And he's like, if there's no German airplanes, then you don't have to protect the bombers.
Right.
So by the time D-Day rolled around, at least the western half of the Luftwaffe was pretty heavily decimated. But, to say that there's only like 2 available aircraft is a gross misunderstatement.
Right.
And they did like that one gunning run. What's the word?
Strafe?
Strafe, that's it. They did that one strafe and they're like, yeah, we won. Let's go home.
Oh, in for the Luftwaffe.
Let's go home, boys. Wiener Schnitzel.
Surely this won't have any repercussions.
Yeah.
Blake, what was one of your big beefs with this movie?
Yeah, man, my whole thing, just like you mentioned with the Luftwaffe aircraft, it's like, I know the movie has good and innocent intentions in what they're trying to portray, but it's almost conflicting, because it's kind of like what you mentioned earlier about how they casted somebody who was actually at Pegasus Bridge and took the time to go there and film on scene, but yet they were so careless with so many other parts of the movie. And see, this is my thing as far as the living history community goes, and keeping history alive. I know this movie was made in the 60s, but I'm going to kind of compare it to today. Like, what I try to tell people as far as I go is like I'm a civilian. I'm not here to portray myself as if current day I am in the military, because I'm not. What I'm trying to do is give the public something to visualize of what a paratrooper looked like, what they did during the war, so that they can learn from that. Otherwise, I'm just playing dress up if I don't get things correct. And so that's kind of where I have to be, excuse me, a bit of a stitch Nazi, is because if I'm not portraying them correctly, I'm giving the public an image that isn't correct. It isn't what those guys actually look like, what they did. And I'm kind of more or less playing dress up. So it's almost like if they would have packaged the movie as just like your run of the mill, hour and a half, hour and 15-minute action flick, and it been fictional, I probably wouldn't have cared. But it's like when you put a 3-hour movie about, a day where 4,000, 5,000 lives were lost, it's like put a little more effort into the detail. That stuff matters. I think one of the biggest things for me is just like the Airborne, those guys were, I don't know what to call it other than like a soup sandwich. It's just like Airborne tab was like 5 inches above the actual patch on their shoulders, and like wearing M1923 haversacks. I don't know. Anyway, it kind of took the belief out of there a little bit for me, where it's like, one day worth of research, like literally send 2 guys to a museum, to a library, one day, and you'd have had a totally different movie.
Well, the crazy thing is they made this movie in a time frame when there was a ton of guys who lived through this still alive.
Right.
Like,
yeah, the John Steele, the guy on the church, was still alive when this movie came out.
Right.
And yes, I just looked that up.
you could have seemed so much more smarter if you hadn't mentioned that second part.
Wait, which part?
But the part that if I hadn't mentioned the part where I just looked it up, I would have seemed smart. Yes, but then again, I didn't say anything when we were talking about him 10 minutes ago.
You are not here to portray somebody smart.
It ain't my job. I'm the lovable comic relief. But yeah, I'm by no means a military expert, hence the Armchair Commanders in the name of this podcast.
Yeah, no, me either, man. Me either. And that's the whole thing is like, I hate to be a stitch Nazi like that. It's just like there are some times where you're like, oh man, I can't, I can't hold it back. Those little things, yeah, there are certain things you can let pass, but when a movie it's obviously got that big of a budget doesn't put any effort into it, it just, I don't know, it kind of bugs me. That was my big thing.
Man, leave
Well,
it to the
it's
Germans to give us a brand new suffix to use when someone's being anal retentive about something. Hence, soup Nazi,
Yeah.
stitch Nazi, gun Nazi. God bless.
Yeah.
Nazi. Wait, what?
If this were YouTube,
Like,
you'd be totally demonetized by now.
which brings the question, like, before Germany had their little episode, what was the word for someone being needlessly anal retentive and authoritative?
Probably,
Like,
probably just a
fun
dickhead or
fact,
something.
before Hitler came to power, the comparison for someone being too authoritative was the Pharaoh from the Bible. Hence why
So what? We're just.
Abraham Lincoln's nickname among his enemies was the American Pharaoh.
Oh, I thought we were just going to go around calling people Ramses when they're being a dick.
I don't remember who the Pharaoh of the Bible was.
It was Ramses the Third, I
But
think.
yeah,
Is
he was
the Bible Pharaoh?
he was the go-to bad guy for many a year.
Fun fact: Ramses has a passport.
Oh yeah, I
Like
saw that they issued
Ram,
him one so he could.
Ramses' mummy has a passport, and his occupation is deceased royalty.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, Pharaoh, but in parentheses, deceased. Yeah, and his age is like circa 1000 BC or something.
I want to see what stamps he's got collected.
Oh, I bet he's been everywhere.
You last time we talked, you said your trip is next year, right, Blake?
Yep, May 30th of
For Netherlands.
2024. So Netherlands is in September of next year. May 30th through I think June 12th or 13th, we're going to Normandy. And boy, it is panning out to be one really incredible trip. We're pretty much everybody that's going. I don't know the exact numbers of how many are going. We're all flying into Paris and then taking buses out to Normandy itself. And I'm trying to remember the name of the chateau that we're staying in, but essentially the team has just leased out a big chateau. And I know that sounds like you're going to get pillow top mattresses and room service, but it's going to be a barrack style deal where we just set up cots and same deal we have at the hangars type thing. But it is a
I don't
original
know.
French chateau.
As long as you got clean sheets and some cold water to drink.
Yep. And the chance to jump into Normandy. Yeah, Chateau de Plan Marais. I'm sure I butchered the pronunciation of that, but anyway, we're getting to do some incredible jumps right now. There's the potential for us to do a couple jumps on a couple original drop zones there. 2 cross channel jumps, it looks like, where we actually start in the UK and cross the channel on C-47s and jump into in which drop zones I still don't know yet. That's still kind of up in the air. But there is the chance for us to do a drop at Mont Saint Michel, which it wasn't a drop zone during the war, but it's a pretty remarkable place to get to see and not only see but jump with it in the background. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's a beautiful place. I'm super excited to get to jump there.
And that's for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, right?
For the 80th, that's correct.
Now, is that something the team does every year, or is it like the big anniversaries?
So there are other teams over in France that do it once a year. with the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team, we go over there usually every 5 years. So the big anniversaries that happen, the 75th, the 80th, and then eventually the 85th. This one for me is really significant. I know the one in its 75th anniversary in 2019 was massive, and I hate that I didn't even know ADT, the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team. I didn't even know ADT existed at the time, so I missed that opportunity just by not knowing about it. But this one for me, being the 80th anniversary of D-Day, this is probably and unfortunately the last time that there will be living veterans from World War II there. If there are any that are able to make it at all. I would be very surprised if there were any that came after the fact, because these men are pushing 99, 100 years old. So it really is kind of the last opportunity, for me to get to go to that sacred place where, something that significant happened, and get to shake their hands. So I'm very, very honored and excited to get to go.
No,
That's amazing.
Yeah, it does sound like a spectacular opportunity. And, they're definitely, it's interesting to think about how, like when I was a kid, there's just World War II vets everywhere.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was summer of last year when the last living Medal of Honor recipient from World War II passed away.
I thought it was the last Medal of Honor recipient from the Pacific.
I think it was the war total. Maybe it was
Oh.
Pacific, but he was a flamethrower operator on Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Oh, Herschel Woody Williams. Is that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got his Medal of Honor by taking out like a dozen pillboxes in one day.
Right.
Like he would go through one flamethrower tank and then like run back, get a new one, come up to the front, take out another pillbox, run back, get another, just like all day.
Right. Yep, that's him. Herschel Woody Williams. He was Medal of Honor recipient.
The last living member of the Band of Brothers died recently too. I don't remember who it was.
I remember seeing that. That was like in the last year or so, I believe.
Right. We lost a couple guys very near and dear to the airborne community. One, Vince Speranza, a gentleman I've always wanted to meet ever since I heard his name and heard his story. For those that don't know his story, he was the famous GI toting a helmet full of beer he found in a blown up bar in Bastogne, that he carried it into the church, which was being used as an aid station, and gave some of the wounded, his fellow wounded soldiers, beer from his helmet, and kept going back and forth from this blown up bar with helmets full of beer. And they actually made a beer post-war. They made a beer, and I think it's called Airborne Beer. They made a beer over there, and named it Airborne Beer, and put him on the front of it. And he never knew it until he went over there in his older years. He never knew, they all thought it was a rumor. And he goes over there and tells the story, and they're like, "Wait, you're the Airborne Beer guy? We thought that was just made up."
Damn it, where's my royalties?
Yeah, seriously. Where's my royalties?
No, we for our social media pages, we posted a bunch of stuff when he passed away. He was one of the very like prominent and vocal members of the veteran community who was still talking and talking about his experiences in the war up until he passed away. So he was a very, very familiar face in the history circles.
Right. Yeah, it's just such a shame. It's so unfortunate. That's the thing about this life. None of us make it out of here alive, and it's just such a shame, to see these guys going. That's why, like, if there's an opportunity, if somebody's out there and you know of a World War II vet, go talk to them. It's your final chances to get to hear those stories or get to visit with them or just show your appreciation for what they did. It is time is of the essence, and that's the thing for us as a team. The motto being remember, honor, serve. That motto gets even more true when all of these guys have passed away, because that's our mission is going to become even more important to try to keep their memory alive, to proliferate it, to help the public see it and remember what they did. So that really is the goal with us, is to try to keep the memory alive, keep them going.
That is great what you guys do. I think I really started to know, like, it's something we've talked before about on this show, but it's not something I really thought about, like, kind of popped into my head until this weekend, actually. For our listeners at home, if you follow us on Instagram, I posted a picture um, this weekend. Or the weekend that we recorded this episode. Uh, I went to a local airport because they're doing kind of like a pseudo mini air show type deal where they had a bunch of old airplanes coming in, and one of the aircraft they had was a C-47, and it was the C-47 That's All Brother. So I went over and took pictures of it, and just climbed in and out of it, and all that stuff. And I've been going to these kind of events since I was a little kid, and I remember, like, one of the first times I ever went to one of these events, I was like 7 or 8, and I went with my dad to see the Collings Foundation's bombers. And I remember as a kid doing that event, like, there were just veterans like everywhere. Like, everybody was wearing a hat like I'm a 101st veteran, or just says Pacific Theater veteran, or I'm from this just everywhere. And when I went this weekend to go look at these airplanes, there's a lot of older guys there, but, like, the only veteran hats you were seeing was like Vietnam or Desert Storm. And it was like there was zero World War II guys out there. There was zero Korea guys out there. And it was like, oh yeah, they're all pretty much are gone now.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing, is like with me, for instance. I know I've had the thought many times, right, where I'm just like, I'd like to set out one day and just go talk to as many of them as I can, like I've seen other guys do. And you kind of have that thought of, well, there's time, I'll get there, and I told you guys last podcast about a couple very dear friends of mine that were veterans of the Second World War, and so I did have guys that were really close to me, but the feeling that I always have is I didn't get enough time. I wish I could have spent so much more time getting to talk to them, and getting to hear what they have to say. But you think you have forever, and you don't. There's less and less of them every day.
Well, yeah, that's a depressing thought.
It is. So, Jack,
So what's everyone drinking tonight?
Yeah, what's the drinks for tonight?
And I'm busy in the getting ready to jump phase of things, so I'm having a 0-calorie Propel. Woohoo!
Party hardy.
Yeah, party hard.
Gotta make weight for the parachutes.
That's exactly right. I'm within weight, but I'm trying to get lighter. After I lost 20 pounds between when I first went and when I last went, and realizing how much lighter the landings were, now I'm like, okay, I would prefer to be skin and bone so that I can land like a feather. What about you guys?
Or Jack, you go.
I'm drinking both a Leinenkugel and a drink that I call a Root Jack. It's a root beer with apple Jack Daniels.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Double fisting it tonight.
Yeah.
It's
fuck it, it's Labor Day.
Yep.
in the spirit of Labor Day, I went and bought myself a tomahawk steak to cook up for tomorrow. So
Oh
that's
man.
going to be my tomorrow activity.
Oh man, that sounds good.
But my drink right now is I'm almost done with it. It's just rum and coke, and my go-to rum is Sailor Jerry's. So
There you go. Man, I've been drinking a lot of Captain Morgan mixed in with Sprite. Tastes like adult cream soda, and it's the best.
have you heard of
Might have to try that.
have you heard of this one distillery? I forget what state it's out of, but I think it's called Bound Oak Distillery,
I don't think
and
I have.
all of their uh, all of the so they do whiskey there, but each one of their bottles is themed for a specific like historical event or uh, like military unit. So they actually have like a General Patton themed bottle of whiskey called Armored Diesel.
Really?
Yeah. Um, I remember seeing it on the shelf for all of a week out here. It's pretty popular stuff. But they also have an 82nd Airborne themed bottle as well.
No kidding.
And they have like jump wing, like a real set of jump wings, like somehow affixed to the bottle. But
That's cool. I need to look that up. That's super cool.
I'll
I
uh, I'll
think,
I'll send it to you so you can keep your eye out for it.
yeah, man, definitely. I
I
think one of my
almost
buddies had something like that last this past April when I was out there. If he showed it to me, it was probably on one of the nights I was. And by the way, we only drink when there's no parachute operations. Usually at the end, everything. So yeah, it was towards the end, and if he showed me that bottle, I was already drinking, so that's why I can't really remember it.
I
Remember something
almost
similar though.
I almost picked up a bottle of they had like a Big Red One themed whiskey,
Oh, cool.
and uh, you know how like Crown Royal comes in a cloth bag.
Mm.
What they did is they took one of those old canvas like canteen covers
Oh,
and
cool.
used that as the bag for it.
Man, that's neat. That's super neat.
But fun fact, we were not the only ones disappointed by this movie, or who shook our heads at this movie.
Mm.
Do you know who the biggest critic of this film ever was?
Who's that?
The man, the myth, the legend, General Eisenhower himself.
No kidding. What did
Yep,
he say?
he went to a showing of this movie and walked out on it.
Yeah, I uh, I guess I'm not the only dick who's gonna be a little bit of a stitch Nazi. I think he was probably feeling the same way.
I find it hilarious because Eisenhower is in this movie for all of about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, and the producer of this film actually went to him and be like, "Hey, do you want to play yourself?"
Hmm.
And apparently he was game for it, but today you can get any actor to play anything because of CGI. Like,
Right.
Mark Hamill came back for the Star Wars TV shows as young Luke.
Hmm.
Uh, but at the time, they didn't have a way to make 70-year-old General Eisenhower look like the 40 or 50-year-old version of himself.
Right.
It also didn't help that, Eisenhower was like a 3-pack a day cigarette smoker. So I'm guessing it was like he was like a hard 70,
No
So
doubt about it. He was smoking those Lucky Strikes.
speaking of which, how was the Lucky Strikes we sent you?
Fantastic. You guys are the best. I really appreciate that. And definitely appreciate the book y'all sent with it. That was super nice gesture. Made my day, man. I smoked all the Lucky Strikes. That's
Want some more?
heck yeah, always.
All right, because I got a pack with me that I ain't gonna smoke.
Send them, man.
There,
I'll pay
yeah,
you
there
for
was
them.
there was a
By the
miscommunication
way,
between me and Jack when we were getting your package together. So
Oh man, y'all are too good to me to even send me something. I really appreciate that. I need to
oh no,
get
the pleasure's
something.
all ours. You
I,
know,
I need to get y'all's address and send you like some T-shirts or something from ADT, just as a gesture back. So
that'd
we'll
be
have to
pretty
make that
cool.
happen.
repay us by doing a jump in our front yard.
Yeah, no doubt.
I want you to recreate the church bell scene with my house.
Oh man,
I want you guys to stage an airborne invasion of my hometown and see what happens.
you know,
I bet you guys could take us.
if your
All of a
hometown was
sudden,
Frederick,
all of a sudden, the tweakers appear are forming Wolverine units, and it's Red Dawn all over again.
yeah, I'll be the
Yeah.
Chinese paratrooper. It's like gunning down the truck, still in the air.
See, the scene that I was thinking of where I was the teacher at the beginning of the film that goes out to greet you guys and then immediately gets shot.
Yeah, I'll break out the old Russian camo, especially for that.
The least you could do is drop a bunch of dummy paratroopers on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Same kind of
exploding
explode.
dummies.
Yeah.
For
I was
king and
gonna
country,
say that-
Rupert.
Rupert.
I was going to say that's probably the most tragic death in this entire movie is poor Rupert.
Oh, Rupert.
Rupert gave it
Yeah.
his all. I think
Yeah,
there's, in this day and age, there's a company for everything because, we got to jump on every kind of branding that there is. But there's a coffee company that's called Rupert Coffee, and it's a picture of the Rupert dummies.
What? No kidding. I did
Yeah.
not know.
So he survived the war and made his own coffee. So the story does have a happy ending.
We're not sponsored by any of these companies, but if you feel like
We could be.
we could be, you know what? I bet Rupert Coffee, please, for the love of God, become our sponsor because I would love nothing more than to say that we're sponsored by a coffee company named after a World War II diversionary device.
This program is brought to you by Pepsi.
Man, if this program was brought to you by Pepsi, we would not be. I don't know. I would not be slowly drinking a singular rum and coke. I'd be on my 5th or 6th. So, but does anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
No, I just have things that are bad for the order.
Yeah.
What is
They're
bad for
over
the
there.
order?
The scene I found the most heavy-handed is when that German officer slowly puts his boots on the wrong feet and the camera lingers on it so many times and for so long. And then the payoff isn't until like an hour and a half later when that wounded British paratrooper's like, I killed the German. Do you see something odd about him? No. His boots are on the wrong feet. Yeah, he must have been in a hurry, and then it's dropped. and then it's that was in the last 5 minutes. So did those two just chill there until help came? What happened?
Yeah. I gotta add. Go ahead.
No, you go with your thought.
I gotta add one moment that just like bugged the daylights out of it. It made me laugh. It honestly made me laugh. That scene where what is the name of the town? They're trying to take the casino. It's the
Saint Mary-Glise.
no, not Saint Mary-Glise. Anyway, they're trying to take the casino, and there's it's heavily fortified, machine guns on the roof and whatever. And they didn't realize there's a bunker that's been built into the ground floor of the casino, and so it's got a anti-tank gun, whatever it is. And it shows a scene from the Germans' perspective looking out of the bunker, and inscribed into the concrete is just swastikas and the words Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil, like 3 times. I'm like, come on, it's not like an SS division. Like it's
were they
It's like
bored?
It's like that scene from Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah,
where he's just carving a swastika into the church.
Yeah, I saw it, and it just reminded me of when I was a kid, and my friends and I would play the Americans and the Germans, and we didn't know any better. You're 7 or 8 years old, running around with toy guns, And so, like, you know, the overly stereotypical stuff of the Germans, where everything has a swastika on it. It just reminded me of that for some weird reason, like some art a kid would draw.
At least that wasn't as bad as the toy parachutes they came out with. Do you know how many broken arms came from that?
Yeah, no doubt.
Have you have By the way, the toy parachute thing, that's a joke, not a real thing. But if you ever
I thought it
have
was.
if you ever have the inclination, go onto YouTube and just look up toy ads from the 50s. And my God, some of these are just ridiculous toys. I mean, you're just thinking to yourself, like, how did people not die from this shit?
Right.
But there's also some toys that you're like, man, that's really cool. I wish I had that. Um, like there was one toy I saw an ad for, um, that it was like a police detectives kit, and it came with like a full size Tommy gun, but instead of shooting bullets, it was like a repeating cap gun type deal. And I'm like, how did a kid not get jacked up? Like, you know, there was at least like one really bad kid who like went to his local sock hop and like try to rob a convenience store type deal, and you're like, how did kids not die from this shit?
Right. Right.
But there's one thing I got that I thought was kind of cool, but it was also like a super niche thing. Was like in the 50s and 60s, the Boy Scouts had like merchandise everything, like Boy Scout mess kits, Boy Scout bugles, sewing kits, all backpacks, everything. Um, and at one point, there was the merit badges that the Boy Scouts had. I was actually an Eagle Scout, but the merit badges that they had available has changed over the years, given whatever is relevant. And at one point, uh, they had a signaling merit badge where one of the requirements was learning Morse code. And so a toy that I actually own, like that's still in the box and works and all that stuff, is a Morse code set where you have a little, it's basically like a little plastic box with a tiny little light on it, and then a tap thing for you to tap out your Morse code message. And it
Right.
comes with like 30 feet of line, so you and a friend can go to different rooms and Morse code at each other.
That's cool. That's cool.
So, did you learn how to Morse code?
Fuck no.
The only Morse code I know is SOS. That's
Yep.
pretty much it.
And
I saw
apparently now the V for victory from the movie. The boop,
Dun
boop,
dun dun dun.
boop.
I actually
Yeah.
did know that before the movie. I watched a TED talk on it.
How dare they declare
Dun 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 dun.
how dare they declare victory before they even do the invasion? It's a little presumptuous. I thought, didn't Eisenhower have two letters, like depending on how D-Day was going to go? Like he had a success letter and he had a this is all my
Yeah.
fault letter.
Yep.
So that's the same as Richard Nixon writing two speeches for the moon landing. One if they died, and two if they made it back.
Right.
Just imagine going up to the podium with the wrong speech in your pocket.
So there's a YouTube channel that got taken down, but I loved it. That was one of the rabbit holes I fell down early on in the pandemic. It's called Vocal Synthesis, and it's a dude with AI that replicates famous people's voices. So if you ever wanted to hear it, there's a vocal synthesis of Richard Nixon reading the moon landing failed speech, and it is haunting. It feels like something right out of an alternate history.
That's
So
got to
there's
be
also-
pretty eerie.
I'm pretty sure there's also Eisenhower reading the "Yeah, we fucked up D-Day" speech.
So it's not the Futurama Nixon of our space cadets have died.
They also have a one where he reads a clickhole parody article of Nixon's long lost speech. And it's more or less, yeah, they died, so what? There's also the guy who played Ben Kenobi, Alec McGinnis, reading Call of Cthulhu. And also him doing the "Have you heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?"
No, I suppose not. It's not something a Jedi.
uh, yeah, good stuff like that. Highly recommend it. But it's getting on to the point where I might need to hop off. So, do you mind if I read the Rotten Tomatoes?
Well, we got to give our ratings, so.
All right, what rating should we give this? Let's have the guest pick.
Yeah, what do you think our custom rating should be?
However many paratroopers in a well, I think is the customary.
Paratroopers in a well.
Fuck.
Surprisingly, this is not the first time we've had a well be a part of our metrics. So
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
oddly enough, it was the Our Fathers, Our Mothers German mini series. I wonder how many times is a well going to show up in our movies? I wonder.
oh, probably a lot. Yeah, we had Matthew Leach, who was an actor from Band of Brothers, come on for one of our episodes, and
Oh, really?
yeah, it was for Generation War. It was a mini series we reviewed, but our metric for that show was blown up wells.
He gave it, I think, 4 blown up wells, and then one where it fizzled out. So 4.5.
Like when it
geez.
fizzled or it was still ticking or something. But
I was fully prepared to get yeah. So I'm gonna give this 4 paratroopers down a well and one just barely hanging on for dear life at the edge.
like with his fingertips.
Yeah, like with his fingertips, or he's calling out for help. He doesn't care. At this point, he doesn't care who is coming from, the Germans, allies. Just he wants to get out of this goddamn well.
All right. Blake, how
All right.
many paratroopers in a well?
Oh, I'm going to give it 3 paratroopers down the well that landed and are okay, and 1 paratrooper whose main and reserve didn't open, and he's now somehow splatted at the bottom of the well.
He just like perfectly bullseyed the well coming
Yeah,
down.
absolutely. Just worst luck of all time. They added, 20, 30
God
feet to the
damn.
bottom of the well. Yeah.
I really like this movie. It is a classic, but it is a 1960s war movie in every sense of the word. For being the highest budget black and white film up until Schindler's List, so it's actually the second highest black and white budget film of all time. It could have been so much better.
Right.
That being said, I still really liked it, but
Yeah.
I think I have to give it just a solid 3 paratroopers in a well rating.
So, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, man. I enjoyed the movie, but you got to take it from a seat of it's an action movie. I'm going to enjoy it for an action movie, a 1960s war epic. You can't take it as it's going to be accurate. It's going to be something to actually go off of. It's which all movies. A movie's supposed to get you interested, and then go do your research and learn. What you're interested
Right.
in. But just for somebody that's already had that, that understanding of a little bit more in detail, it suspends your. Let's put it this way: it takes you out of the belief of what you're seeing on the screen. So you just got to take it for an action movie, another 1960s fun flick. But at that, it's a good movie.
Yeah, it is a good movie. It's just not. It's not the greatest movie or the best movie. It's a good movie.
And it could have been so much better. That's what gets
Yeah.
me. I think that's what irritates me the most is it could have been. It was big enough. It had the right actors. It had an era when you can get that sort of gear and equipment for pennies on the dollar. And it just could have been, a little bit of effort, so much better.
So, Jack, what does Rotten Tomatoes give this?
Well, on the tomometer, it ranks an 87%, but the audience score is 90%. I got to go with the critics on this one. I know that's against the grain for me, but
I think there's got to be some nostalgia points getting added in there.
Mm.
But I'm not mad at it. But I'll stick with my 3 paratrooper rating.
Yep.
and then stick to your guns. At the end of the day, it's all you have. Be it a Thompson or a Car 98.
Click clack. So, Jack, I believe you set up our guest for next week. Who do we have going on, and what movie are we doing?
That is a good question. Let me check my messages. It's to be determined, but
All right, folks at home, it's a secret until next week.
Yeah, it's a surprise.
It's not because
history in your mind, and the movie is The Somme.
All right. So, Blake, same as last time, the floor is yours to share any social media accounts you want, share social media for the team, and let the people know about anything that's coming up that you want them to know about.
Absolutely. So you guys can find me on Instagram. It's at Knees to the Breeze. Just how it sounds, Knees to the Breeze. And I post pictures of different parachute activities and what's going on, and try to teach people a little bit about what goes on with the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team. ADT itself, that we hold a parachute school twice a year in July and October. It's a 10-day school where you can come out, learn how to parachute, hold ground school, and get 5 jumps out of an original World War II era C-47. Both of our aircraft are veterans. They both served in combat. And so you can look up the team, WWII is our website. And, we're on Facebook, on Instagram, pretty much all over there. Big events, we're hosting a jump school in October. If anybody is out and around the area, I believe it's October 14th is our open hangar day. It's in Frederick, Oklahoma, about 45 minutes from Lawton. Come out, visit with us, see us get to put in a jump and see the hangar in person. And otherwise, anybody out there, if you want to come jump, come out. Anybody can do it. You don't have to be prior military. You don't have to be prior parachute experience. Come out and jump with us. It is something you will never forget.
Well,
all right.
Thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, you guys, I appreciate y'all.
For those who want additional content from us, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at the Armchair Commanders Podcast. We also have a YouTube channel called History Apprentice. If you don't like the fact that it's a different name, deal with it. I created the YouTube channel before we started this podcast, so it was too much effort, air quotes. Please, if you like the show, please leave a review. The stars do matter. If you know anybody who's in search of a new podcast, please share it with them. We always love to expand our listening base. Until next time, I've been John.
And I'm Jack.
And I'm Blake. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on, and we will catch all of you next week.
Bye.